In this video, I'm going to take you through how I make $25,000 profit a month on Amazon. And I'm going to take you through specifically my journey to get there and the number one metric that I focused on this entire time learning how to resell online. So the number one metric that you need to focus on, and we're going to talk a lot about this throughout the whole time, is potential profit. Potential profit is so important. So potential profit is if I buy an item for $100 and I sell it and get back $200, that's $100 of potential profit. So I'm going to take you through some of the business models that I did in order to actually get to the point where I'm at right now, and basically how potential profit interacted with those. So the very first business model that I did was selling used clothes and shoes on eBay. And so majority of these items I was actually sourcing from the Goodwill outlet world. So I'm going to kind of just show you guys what this place looks like. And we'll get to why there's all of these blue thrift stores marked later in the second business model. But this place basically it's basically Goodwill's liquidation center. If Goodwill wasn't a liquidation place enough, like this guy, I've seen this video before, he's like mad about it. So basically they wheel out these blue bins, and it has a bunch of liquidation stuff in it. Bunch of shoes, bunch of clothes, bunch of electronics, hard goods, etc., and you pay by the pound there. So instead of paying like $10 per unit or item, it's by the pound. So it's like $1.50 a pound or something like that. I was doing this back in 2019, 2020, so the prices have changed. But yeah, basically I was like buying like Carhartts, different types of pants, different types of shoes, different types of clothing, and selling it back on eBay. So let's say I found some Carhartt double knee pants, and I had something that was like, we'll just say it's super similar to this. They were black, they're faded, blah blah blah, whatever. 86 shipped, including shipping. So let's say I find something that's $86. Fees at the time were 13%, so I would get back 87% of my money. Shipping the item would probably cost, we'll just round up to 10, and then the cost of goods, call them like £2, so $3. Doing this business model was tons of super easy but repetitive math like this to understand, like, okay, like, am I down to actually do this? Does this actually make sense for what I'm doing, or does it not? So in this case, 86 times 0.87 is 78.82. Minus 10, 68.82, minus 3, 61.82 profit. But this is potential profit. And so I need to make sure that I'm listing a certain amount of potential profit every single week. And that's something that I've done throughout my reselling journey. So when I was doing this part-time while I was going to school, I was potentially maybe looking to do 500 in potential profit per week. So if I found all Carhartt double knee pants like this that were 61.82 profit, that would only be 8.8 items, so 9 items a week that I would have to find, buy, and list. But you know, that's not how it goes. So you're gonna have to list a lot more items. And the unfortunate part about this business model, and especially the way that my skills are at the time of doing that anyways, is it was taking me 7 minutes to list and 7 minutes to ship per item on average. And so if you can shave that down, that is going to save you a ton of time. You can do much better than that for sure. I was just really slow. Really slow pictures. I gave measurements, like measuring pants, for example, just it takes a little while. So per item, just round it up to 15 minutes per item. And that doesn't include finding them, because it's not like you just go out there and find Carhartt double knees every hour. Like, that's not how it works. And so since finding really good items takes a long time, you sometimes are tempted to end up settling for something like this. I looked something up like this earlier, where it's like, okay, like I could probably sell this for, you know, $18.80 plus $8.99. So like $27.87 total. But then you end up accepting an offer for 22, and then we have this whole same breakdown again. It's still it'll be maybe $9 to ship and probably still 2 pounds. So we'll call it 3. And so at that point, 19.14 after fees, minus 9 is 10.14, minus 3 is 7.14. And so suddenly you've made $7 instead of a lot more. And you can only do 4 of these items an hour. And so suddenly you're like, okay, I'm not really making that great of money doing this because I have to actually find these items in addition to listing and shipping them. That was a big problem with this business model. It was not super easy to find a ton of profit in a single week, but I still was able to pay my bills doing this. I ended up quitting my master's degree to do this full time. I was able to figure out how to list items a bit faster, so that was helpful because then you can list more items per hour and therefore you can list more in potential profit. But eventually the next business model that I moved on to, and this is more relevant to probably more people that are watching this video, is selling used books on Amazon. Probably a lot of my viewers have at least done this business model some. We're going to talk more about online arbitrage later and how I actually transitioned into that. But selling used books was the next transition of what I did in order to make money online. And this was going to be a thing that was on the side to selling on eBay. But as I started doing this, like at the time, I probably had a find $1,000 of potential profit goal per week, knowing that not all of this is going to actually sell for the price that I thought it was going to sell for. You accept offers, prices go down. That's how it goes. I was finding that finding this $1,000 profit per week was easier to do with used books. And it also only took me about 2 minutes per book to list and send to FBA. And then I didn't have to fulfill it to the customer and deal with returns either. So this saved me so much time. And I was able to use 𝗬𝗏 and a Bluetooth scanner, and I would literally just go back to this place. At the time anyways, they would wheel out books every couple hours. And of course, there were a couple other people who knew about this. And so you just had to be faster and better than them and find the profit that was there and just hope that your competition leaves, which they sometimes did. I mean, of course, they have other things to do. That's why I have all of these thrift stores highlighted. For a long time, I would have a rotation of thrift stores that I would go to on a regular basis. And I would try to spread it out okay, go to this thrift store every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks so that there was time for stuff to get restocked. Because you don't want to go and scan 5,000 books and do that every single day. That just takes a long time. So I was hitting all the thrift stores. I was going to this Goodwill Outlet World. I was doing free pickups. I was selling books for friends and family consignment, or if they just needed to get rid of them, I would sell them for them. Anything I could do to find this potential profit per week. And eventually, as I continued doing just books, I raised this to around 1,500 of potential profit per week that I was sending into FBA. So this 2 minutes per book, you don't really think it's going to take that long. But when you're doing books, at least for me, my average profit book was probably around $7 profit, because you'll accept the ones that are $2, $3, $4 profit, but then there'll also be those every once in a while $40 profit or $100 profit or $300 profit. It probably came out to around $7 profit because there were just so many of those $3 profit books. So if I'm trying to source 1,500 profit per week and my average book cost is $7, how long is that going to take me to list? And how many books is that? So that's 200 and round up to 15 books a week. And if it takes me 2 minutes to list the books times 215, that's 430 minutes, which is just over 7 hours. But if on average I'm able to find 150 of potential profit per hour sourcing, boy, would I love to have that 7 hours back. So I ended up hiring a single mom from the apartment complex to list all my books for $20 an hour. I would basically drop the books off at her house. I set her up with a Dymo. I set her up with a scanner. I gave her an SOP for how to list, and she was off to the races, making money from home with her kids. And I was able to take that 7 hours that I gained back and put that straight back into sourcing. which lets me list another over $1,000 per week on Amazon FBA instead of having to sit there and list my books for 7 hours. And so, of course, not all of this ends up selling perfectly the way you think it does, but maybe we'll call it 60% does the way that you think it will. And so we end up making a really good profit there. You know, like it only cost me a couple $100 to pay her for the 7 hours. And like that helps me list more potential profit per week. And so I was off to the races. I was listing more like 250, 300 books a week because of these improvements. And of course, books don't sell super, super quickly unless you're super, super low rank on these. And so basically, restock limits happened. I had around 3,000 books listed. They said I could sell 1,600 books. So basically, I could still sell the 3,000 books, but I basically couldn't list anymore. So basically, I was like, okay, I need to find a business model where I can actually sell these items faster, at least for a portion of my stores. That way I can sell books faster. So I also kind of tiptoed my way into retail and online arbitrage, which eventually turned into eBay to Amazon. And so again, I was going to do this as just part of my business model, but I ended up finding that I could find more potential profit per week doing online arbitrage and eBay to Amazon. Now I was doing some traditional retail arbitrage, like some Trader Joe's. I did some Nike, like Air Force Ones for a while. I didn't really have like the capital to really scale that super well. And so basically I was cleaning out a office building that my in-laws, they were selling their business in their building. And they were like, you can just sell whatever's in here, sell or donate it, like go for it. We know you resell, like power to you. And so they had a lot of office cassette players, printers, docking stations, et cetera, that I just sat there and looked up on Amazon if these items had listings and like what they were selling for and the sales rank, et cetera. My world was open to the world of electronics. And so like I was saying before, I didn't have like tons and tons of capital. I was, at least in my opinion, from where I'm thinking about now, I had like $7,000 or $8,000 that I was running my whole store with. So it still had some books in it, doing some grocery. I was doing a little bit of Nike, but like with a lot of that stuff, you really need like 10x that amount of money to do really, really well. But I ended up finding that there were some thermal printers that were selling extremely quickly from that office that I had sourced from. And I was like, shoot, like all of these sites are out of stock. It looks like they got discontinued. Where can I buy more of these? And so I was able to get more thermal printers from eBay, and I could sell them used on Amazon because people just really wanted these items. So now instead of, with eBay, like selling an item and making like $10, $15 profit, or with books, it's less profit than that, but the listing is so much easier. Now I can go and buy a thermal printer or a docking station or something else from eBay. And at the time it was something like, of course there were tons of different situations, but it was like a buy for 100, get back 160. So suddenly I can make $60 potential profit on one flip, on one item. And not only am I making $60 in potential profit, but it's not either of these business models where a majority of your stuff doesn't sell out just like that. Like this stuff often sells within a month that you actually list it, because at least in this case, I was targeting stuff that was discontinued and also in demand. So items sell faster for higher profit. But still, with around $8,000, you can only do this so much, especially doing this Amazon FBA, until you run out of capital, especially if you're able to actually find inventory relatively quickly. And so over this time, like I was sending in a lot more than $1,500 in potential profit. And for a long time, capital was really the biggest like hindrance in my business. So eventually I was like, you know what, like enough's enough. Like I have a great opportunity here. I'm making money on this really well so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take $10,000 from a 0% APR card and put this into my business on top of the 8,000 that I have. So now I was at least rolling $18,000. And, I was able to find more and more opportunities like this, and items continued to sell in a very quick amount of time. And so I ended up taking a $52,000 Amazon loan and also other various 0% APR cards as well. Also regular credit cards that had a month limit. I took out a lot of capital. This wasn't over just like a month time. This was over like 6 months. And I took out a ton of capital. I was very leveraged for quite a long time. It was very anxiety provoking. So do know that if you decide to go down that route, at least for me anyways. But I don't think I would have been able to grow my inventory and the amount of money that I have for inventory today, which is all cash. If it wasn't for that, it would have taken a lot longer. So pros and cons there. Also, considering this, the capital was an improvement, but it also did lead me to a pretty big mistake, which was kind of a mistake in my business model. Prep centers are awesome, and it makes it so that you can list more in potential profit because you don't have to list your items. And so you can just get more done in a week. But sending used items to a prep center, especially that aren't like new, like in the box, like with manuals. Oftentimes I was just sending like a thermal printer, and then it would have the cord, or sometimes on paper it looked really good to sell them used acceptable without cords, because people will sell them for even cheaper on eBay, and you can sell them for 130% ROI back on Amazon just in used acceptable condition and just discount it a little bit. The problem with that is returns go through the roof, combined with a prep center not really checking your items. At scale, that ends up being like a pretty big mistake. I kind of joke about this sometimes, but in 2022, I did more in returns than most people will ever do in sales in a year. Like I'm just going to show you real quick. I think it's just funny to show. I did 694,000 in sales in 2022 with 177,762 in returns. All that to say, sending used items to a prep center, although it did increase my potential profit per hour and potential profit per week and per month and et cetera, I had a ton of returns. And so I was able to do a ton of sales because I was leveraging my capital. I was leveraging a prep center, but my returns were super high. I was sending used items to a prep center, so stuff would get lost, stuff would get broken. When there are returns, there's often stuff that gets broken from that. So I had a lot of costs around that as well. I made money in 2022, but nowhere near as much as this year. Another thing that I really did do right though, which really did help my potential profit this year, was hiring a virtual assistant. And I think it's key to do this once you actually understand what you're trying to do in your business model. Otherwise, what is it going to be like? I'm trying to source used thermal printers and docking stations, and they're like, oh, this cat food from Petco is amazing. Sell this for $2.38 a unit and just run that. They're going to have their business model in mind. And if you don't have a business model in mind, you're like, oh, I'll go for that. But you're not optimized for it. Like a friend and I were talking about the other day, you need to be optimized for the thing you're doing. So once you know what you're doing, you can actually hire and teach someone. And we've been working together for the last 2.5 years. At the beginning, they weren't finding the best stuff, but after tons of feedback, and she's super smart anyways, she's doing great. Things are super smooth. I appreciate her a ton. And so now the final business model, and kind of actually getting to the conclusion of how I'm actually making $20,000 profit a month, is doing eBay to Amazon, merch fulfilled, and doing new items. So now I don't do tons of thermal printers. I do some. Now I just do a whole gamut of new items, which is something that I could probably improve on as well. If I could niche down a little bit better, I could probably improve more. But as of now, I transitioned from selling used items to prep center FBA to doing new items, prep center FBA, and that worked quite well as well. Actually, probably better, honestly, but I wanted more control of my inventory. And so I did switch to merch fulfilled mostly. And so although I'm still receiving all my items and listing my items, I'm still able to make a ton of money because I'm able to be very precise with like, okay, I'm looking at a Keep It graph. There's very few sellers right now. I can order this, get this listed, get this sold ASAP. Whereas with FBA, I have to wait 3 weeks for the item to go active. And so in this business model, I was doing the same thing as I'm doing now. Like I would list 20, 30, 40,000 dollars of potential profit in a month. But because of the whole issue of things being used, getting broken, lost, returned, etc., the percentage of what I was sending in that would actually sell for profit, that would actually stay profit, and the customer would not return the item was so much lower. I don't have a percentage on that, and neither do I now, but I know it's so much higher now. Like, let's say if in a month, and this is my current, well, earlier in the year, my goal was let's do anything to try to get to $18,000 of potential profit listed per month. And like I was working hard to try to do that. I would assume anywhere between probably 50 and 75% of that would sell for what I think it's going to sell. And then there's costs. So like, let's say if that's the case, 50% to 75% minus costs. So 18, we'll just do the low end. So that equals 9K. And then let's say costs are 3K. So that's $6,000 of profit per month. Or at the higher end of that, if things go up, if things sell for pretty close to what I think they're going to sell for without tons of changes, that could be 13,000 and minus costs. So 10.5 thousand, which both of those like are actually like amazing and great money. At that point, I was feeling like this feels unreal. Like, how could I do better than this? Because like kind of thought I was just going to go work a job and like make my like decent money per year and call it a day. But that's some really good money. But then later in the year, as I started, and I just did this 100K at 100% ROI in 100 days challenge. And even leading up to that in May, June, July, I started raising my ROI as well. Even at this point, I was running out of capital. And so I was like, okay, like if I want to keep paying myself and putting money outside of the business, I need to like have really good ROI. So I raised my ROI. I spent more time on sourcing. I feel like I've gotten better at it. And so now at this point, I'm shooting for 30,000 of potential profit listed per month. And there were a couple months where I did more like 42,000 of potential profit per month. And so this video might come out in the middle of the 100K challenge, or it might come out after. I'm not 100% sure. But right now it's around October 20th. In September, I literally made $28,000 of profit. And in October, I think it's going to be somewhere around 25,000 of potential profit. The months before were around 19,000 of potential profit, or actually of actual profit. At a minimum, if I do 30,000 of potential profit, and we'll call it, we got my cat who wants to join, cat Stella, who wants to join the video. But 30,000, if 60% of it sells like I think it will, that's 18,000 of profit. And then there's like costs, which are around 4,000 per month at this point. So that's like 14,000 of profit per month. And so like you see how like listing more potential profit that's actually going to sell in a fast amount of time is so powerful, because, you know, if I do that 40,000 of potential profit and 60% of it sells, that's 24. And then minus costs is 20,000 in profit, which is absolutely wild. So I think doing merch fulfilled made it so that I was more, you know, precise with like when I'm listing stuff, it actually sells for what I think it is, because like I think 60% is too conservative of a number here. Whereas if I had sent this stuff into FBA, like a lot can happen in 3 weeks. I don't know if it's necessarily FBA or if I'm just getting better at sourcing. I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, like this is a journey getting from, you know, like listing 500 in potential profit per week and like before that, like I wasn't listing $500 profit a week. I was probably just trying to list, like my very first time I went to the thrift store, I think I bought 10 t-shirts and like none of them sold for a month. And finally, after like 2 months, one of them sold and I made like $2 profit. And I didn't even source anything until my first sale because like I wanted to get my first sale. Even doing this is like step 11. Like even doing like this is like step 68. You just keep getting better and better at what you're doing. And if you make slow improvements over time and be like, I'm in this first step here, or like maybe I'm selling retail arbitrage for Amazon and like listings taking me a long time. Like, what can I do to shave that down? Because like, let me tell you this, like it was taking me a lot longer than this when I first started selling on eBay. That's for sure. Or like if you're selling used books on Amazon, like what can you do to shave this number down? Can you like maybe stop listing on Seller Central? Like maybe you could have a better process for listing your items, like it's more formatted for yourself, or you just hire someone and pay them the 20, 25 an hour, or depending on your area, whatever it is. And like suddenly you get another $1,000 of time basically back in your business every single week that you can go do what you're better at. Or if you suck at this, like maybe you need to do some consignment and like, or like pay up for books, or find some better way of making this number go up, because that's really what's going to get you to the next level. How can I make this number go up in a good amount of time per week? Because you can only do so much and you can only find so much. So like, what can you do to optimize your setup and get better? Like this was so much better of a business model. This made sense on paper, but then when you consider the returns, broken items, et cetera, I don't know if it was worth it. Like I met basically my like competitor, maybe he's watching this video, and throughout this whole period of time, he was doing his own prep. He worked a lot more than me, but he made a lot more money than me this year. And like, he's very optimized for this business model. He's good at prepping used items. He knows exactly what to do. He knows exactly how they work. He knows all the common problems. He doesn't use a prep center. Actually, I think now he uses a prep center. Whatever you can do to make this number go up within a faster amount of time, that's going to get you to the next level. That's how I make $25,000 profit on Amazon per month. Last month, it was around 28. This month in October, when this comes out, it'll probably be November. I'll know when the video comes out, but it'll be edited way before that. So I'm guessing around 25,000 profit for this month. Things are going great. This is the journey of my reselling journey. Hope you guys got some value out of this. If you guys want to connect more, I do have a free Discord in the description below where we talk about eBay to Amazon and you can get your questions answered. We have an ungating section. We have a brand ideas section. I would love to see you guys in there. If you're not subscribed already, it would really help me out a lot. But with that being said, have a great rest of your day and take care.